Amanda Freick. So I am an electrical engineer by education. Now I find myself more on the revenue strategy side. And I think I like to share that because I think you're not defined by your education, especially in the freelance community. And that's really the beauty of open talent, which we'll get to in a bit, but it's all about finding those hidden skills that people have, which is really kind of a beautiful thing that the new world is kind of opening up for us. Like you mentioned, I am the Chief Revenue Officer for Altruistic. So we are a purpose-driven data science and AI consultancy. We really believe in doing projects that are good in the world, which is why I think open talent is so important to us. And I think we're an interesting group to be talking about this because we're not just using open talent, to build our own solutions. We use open talent to build our customer solutions, and we're also investing through open talent, whether that be in platforms or resources or a mixture of both. So we really come at the kind of freelance open space from a lot of different angles. And for me, it's been really special because I've been following open innovation for almost a decade now. I was introduced to it at a conference in energy of all things. And now I've found myself in a position where I can support it in a big way and help drive innovation, where I think it's needed most. And for me, if there's anyone out there who's in the energy space, I'm a big energy geek. It's where I grew up in my career. And that's another story for another day. But it's really it's a blessing to be able to be here and to be able to share all of this. So with that, this is like not working for me here. That's okay. There we go. Okay. So I know that we probably talked about a ton throughout kind of this month and all of your events around kind of what is open talent, why are people freelancing, but I wanted to set the stage in case there's somebody who hops on and this is the only thing they see, right? So it's important to understand that open talent really is a way to conduct business, and it's borderless and it's technology enabled. And really how I see it and explain it to people is it's the democratization of work. It's the ability to tap into talent globally through different communities and different networks that you wouldn't normally have if you were just hiring people in the FTE or full-time employee model. And this becomes really special when you're trying to achieve things in an innovative environment. So, and right now, what we're really seeing is we're in this kind of freelancer tipping point, which again, I'm sure a lot of these statistics have been coming up this month, but I will reiterate them because they really are important. So when I was back in college, which I won't say how long ago that was and date myself, but it wasn't that long ago. And I would have never considered freelancing, right? That wasn't even a word. If somebody said it, it was like, it was a freelance reporter for a newspaper, or it just had an interesting connotation to it. Now it's predicted that over half of the US population will be doing some kind of freelance work by 2027, which to me is just mind-boggling that we've gone through such a cultural shift of all we do is full-time work to now half of us are saying, yeah, let's do it. Let's freelance on the side. Let's get this gig work. Let's make our money a different way. And I can tell you, if I would have had this opportunity in college, my experience would have looked very different, being able to freelance on the side rather than waiting tables every night to pay for my education. And I think that's just a really amazing thing about where the future of work is going. The other thing that I found interesting was that I saw statistics, 73% of non-freelance workers are now considering freelance work, which I think shows, again, just this huge cultural shift that's happening. Because again, when I was in college, nobody was talking about this. It was get the full-time job with the 401k, with all those bennies, make sure there's a pension if you can get one, what's in that employment contract. It was very, very structured, where now the world is embracing this freelance work to people who, have had this kind of stuck in their brain this whole time that there's only one way to make a living. They're really changing their minds, which again just goes to the beauty of how powerful freelance work is and how powerful open talent can be to these organizations. And finally, over the next decade, work completed by freelancers is expected to increase by 168%. And that's incredible because when we get into some of the more numbers about where we're at right now, to consider going up another 168%, that's a lot of work being done. And it's really impressive. And we're going to dive into that a little more. So it's no secret that these platforms are becoming investable, right? And when I say platform, this is the technology enablement behind the open talent, right? It's how somebody who needs something done is finding the person that's going to do that for them. So I've put a few logos on the page that many of us are probably familiar with. I know that I have personally used, I think, all of these, and they're really convenient tools. I mean, I've done everything from hire someone to transcribe interviews for me, to getting logos done, to getting apps designed. You can really find just a wealth of talent on the open market. And the numbers are proving it, right? Freelancers are contributing $1.4 trillion just to the US economy, right? That's not even global at this point. That's a very, very large number of people who are not on someone's payroll, right? They are doing contract work. Now, Google is a really interesting case study. So I had no idea this was the case. I have a lot of friends that work for Google. I will tell you, I think they call themselves Googlers. I think it's like a cult. They're diehard, and God bless them, because it must be an amazing work environment for them to all feel that way. But with as strong as their full-time base is and how much they love that company, 54% of their work is still done by freelancers. Like, that blew my mind when you think about how big Google is, how many people work there. There's still that amount of workload that they're giving out to contractors as freelancers. Is really amazing. And that means they're doing a lot for this community, which is awesome. And the last one on here is there's currently 1.56 billion freelance workers globally, and it's increasing, right? We're finding them all over the place. 73% of us that didn't think about it before are thinking about it now. And this is all why these kinds of platforms are becoming more and more investable, right? We're becoming to the point where investors are seeing them as more safe. We're understanding the economy behind it. We're seeing the markets build where the big guys like Google are truly embracing this type of work. And although the examples of these logos I put on here are all kind of techy and very much sort of like the online transaction, I wanted to give a few more examples that I've personally used that are very much not getting an app made or getting a logo made. So one I love is care.com. They connect like in-home care professionals like babysitters or caregivers for the elderly to families that need them. Incredible community. Uber is one that people don't often think of, but it really is all contract freelancers, right? It's not like I'm getting a logo made, it's I need a car. And that was really, we laugh about the story all the time of 10, 15 years ago, before Uber existed, who would ever say I'm going to get in this stranger's car that I've never met in my life, right? But the guy driving the yellow car is also a stranger. It's just a cultural shift to now trust it through the technology. And that just shows you the power of open talent and what we can do through these types of platforms. The other two I'll share, one that I love is Rover. So any dog owners out there, if you need someone to walk your dog or babysit your dog, this is a community and platform to attach you to them. And the last one, which for me, being a woman who travels a ton for work and often doesn't want to wash my own hair, there's a wonderful app called Glam Squad, and that will bring beauty professionals to you wherever you are. So the point of sharing all those is that the opportunities are endless. And I think it's important that although we talk about it in tech a lot, it's tech enabled, right? And it's really going to be what's behind that tech and what are the problems that they're solving through these platforms that make them truly investable. So why are we thinking about it now, right? And why are they becoming investable in such a big way? What's happening in the world? I think the biggest thing for me is that these innovation cycles within companies have to go faster, right? There's a wonderful book called The Future is Faster Than You Think that talks about the convergence of technologies. I highly recommend it. But it really gives a lot of good examples around how companies have to move fast to stay ahead of the game and how we're having to meet our customers where they're at and bring that innovation to life. Not only that, the skill set for that innovation is really widening. And we'll get into a platform that we're currently building that addresses this situation in particular. But when you think about, what it took to get different jobs done before, it was pretty easy for recruiting managers and HR teams to have very specific job profiles for how they got their business done. Now that's becoming very complex. And the prediction of what we're going to need in the future is changing so fast that by the time we've now caught up and figured out what we need, that moment has passed and we need something else. And being able to be super agile like that is what's driving the momentum behind these platforms. It's the ability for not just the solopreneur who needs a logo to go find someone on the fly, but it's the organization that needs a deeply technical data scientist team to come in and solve problems for them. Having that flexibility to move in a super agile way is what's really important for these teams. And another great statistic, because I am an engineer, is that the best innovators in the world, so innovative companies, right, 77% of them are using some kind of open strategy, which is a big number. And especially when you think about, who are the big businesses that are kind of running the economy right now. I've worked with a ton of them. We laugh, that internally they're quite dinosaur-like and change is hard. But we're seeing that those who are succeeding, those who are innovating, they're embracing the open strategy, and they're doing that for a reason. They do it because it works. And having the right platforms behind that is what enables it to go faster. Again, which is why investing into those platforms is therefore, in the end, adding to the bottom line of these corporations, which overall becomes a good investment for everybody. So now I want to switch into a specific example, because I think that's where the rubber really meets the road. So let's talk about open talent and data science, because data science is what we live in at Altruistic. And it's an economy that is booming right now across the globe. And what's super interesting about this is that data science itself is projected to create 11.5 million jobs by 2026. So it's right around the corner. The tricky thing about data science is that the field itself, which I'll show some examples in a moment, is full of very specialized, highly technical individuals that can be an absolute expert on one project and the absolute wrong person for another. And so finding that talent and matching them to the projects where they can be the most successful and make the biggest difference is really hard. And one story I'll share is I talk to a lot of data scientists on the regular, because that's my job. And I met a wonderful young man who was absolutely brilliant, who's a data scientist, and he was working in a large corporation. He took this job. It was a big promotion to become like a lead data scientist. The company didn't know how to leverage him. They didn't totally understand their data science strategy. And so he ended up taking a demotion back into project work because he wasn't feeling fulfilled, right? But he wanted the security of that full-time job, because that's where he was at kind of culturally and in his family, where you take a data scientist and put them in freelance work, that same individual, right? I can know his exact right skills and pop him into a project where he's going to thrive, right? Because we're in this open environment. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, but I wanted to give that as an example because it's important to know that the open strategy is really about that match. And it's not just about the match, it's about making a good match, which we'll also get into. So kind of running with the theme of data science. So here's 10 of the kind of job titles you might see in this world, which is again, why it makes it really perfect for an open talent strategy, because you're having all of these different roles, all of these different specialties that need to be able to flex in and out based on where a project's at and what it's accomplishing. And so being able to tap into these different resources in an open way becomes extremely valuable for the corporation, and therefore a very good investment on the back end when you're looking for things to invest in open talent. So thinking about this from a platform perspective and why something like this would be a good investment. So in another life, I was in HR, and for this project in particular, I interviewed quite a few recruiters that were specifically recruiting in the space of data science. And I love this quote, and I'm not going to say who it was because I won't call them out. But on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do they trust a resume? It was 0, right? Because you can write whatever you want on a resume. You can put whatever you want on your profile on Fiverr or Upwork or whatever it may be. And so when you get to something like this, where I'm not just trying to prove to you that I can copyright your email sequence, or that I can design a pretty flower logo, I have to prove to you something extremely technical. And so that's where we came up with this ecosystem of how to solve this problem of it's about sourcing the right data scientists. It's around the timing of how fast we need to get these people, because like I said, these innovation cycles are going very, very fast. It's the price, and not just price of the individual, but it's how the price of finding the individual, vetting the individual. You can't just have anyone interview somebody who's highly technical. You have to have somebody highly technical to validate them, right? So then it's a double whammy of expense. And then finally, that validation of, okay, how can we measure and assess this certain community, this certain open talent pool in a meaningful way to solve all of these problems as the corporations move forward? So again, here's my engineering brain with some more numbers and stats because I think they drive points home. Okay, so 28% growth in data science by 2026. Huge numbers. $50,000 is the average commission per candidate recruiters are getting for these data scientists. Apparently, I went into the wrong field and I should be a recruiter for data scientists because that is crazy. And 6 months is the average time to find one, which I can personally attest to. Finding the right guy or girl for the right job is hard. The interview process is long. And even in this state of great resignation, it's the talent kind of pool, I guess, for lack of a better term, it's chaotic. And it's really hard to go through that process right now. And if anybody's in HR or has friends in HR, I'm sure you were feeling their pain because this whole situation right now globally is just something I've definitely never seen before. So here's what we think is the solution and why these platforms can become really intelligent and really meaningful and really investable. Is one, you put an algorithm behind it. So in our world, we're using AI to match the expertise to the enterprise and their project. We're doing that through the talent crowd, right? Here's the open part. So right now there's about 3,500 data scientists in this global crowd that we're able to look at and match to these different projects. How do we do that? We do that through assessment or testing. So we have proprietary tests, which I'll get into in a moment, that all of these folks go through so we know exactly where to place them in a quantitative way. And then one of the biggest things I'll say for investability into open platforms is the expertise behind it. So there are a ton of platforms out there. Building these kinds of talent communities and these platforms is not for the weak of heart. And it really takes a certain level of expertise. We are very blessed to have our CEO, Rob McGuire, behind us, who's got a long breadth of knowledge from doing this in different ways. And so he has been able to guide a lot of this to make it really meaningful because these talent crowds and these open platforms are almost like living, breathing things. And you really need to understand how to take care of them and how to nurture them in order to bring the most value to market. And so this is where our little bit of secret sauce comes in. It's not just an open talent platform, it's validated, right? And that's where we're going beyond the resume. So here's a little map, right? So this is what we did with Harvard researchers, which has been a fascinating experience. I mean, anything you do with Harvard, right, is going to be fun. And so the idea is we're getting rid of the problem of hiring the wrong person, right? So US labor statistics say it's 30% of a person's annual salary is what it costs a company when you hire the wrong person. That's a lot. And I've personally hired the wrong person and it's not a fun experience. So what we're doing in this platform is saying, okay, here's the candidates, here's our pool of data scientists and data professionals. We put them through this proprietary test that helps us understand, okay, where are you strong? Where are you weaker? How can you improve? You get a skill validation report showing exactly where you stack up and recommendations on where to improve to get different jobs. But the beauty behind all of that is that there's this huge database for analytics behind it showing, okay, where are the gaps in the market? How does the global talent pool need to adjust to meet the needs of the future? And all of this benchmarking to make sure that the data science community globally is ready for the innovation that we're demanding going forward. And so finally, to wrap this up, because I know I've got 1 minute before we want to do questions, is, for us, that specific example of data science is really important because that is the business that we're in. But that's just our direct business. So we not only invest in ourselves and in our community and in our clients' communities through data science and AI, but we also have an investment vehicle for other products that we find interesting that are doing good in the world and are making a difference. And that's why, we are investors into open talent platforms. We are investors into open talent because it's really about the democratization of talent and just having that access to the innovation that we need to solve the world's biggest problems.